He has a farmer's tan, but no shirt on.
Yeah. Which suggests that he's worn, like...
He's worn a shirt most of his life.
Okay, for some reason, he looks to me like he has, like, a very rural Australian accent. Like, I picture him, like, with the club, like he's just, finished, like, a 12-pack of beers, and he's going, like, kick the bloody ball! Anyway.
Yeah, I really feel like this guy exists in one or more pubs. Got a white millions, and then we'll look, I don't know, drunk, and, like, we have thoughts on rugby.
Hey, I have thoughts on rugby, and I'm sometimes drunk. Thoughts on rugby.
Hi, I'm Emmy.
And I'm an incredibly convincing computer program trying to convince you that I am James.
And I'm disturbed! But in any case, this is the Bestiary Monster Manual A through Z. And computer simulation, formerly known as James. What are we talking about today?
So, diving into our section of the Bestiary, looking at giants, we're starting off at the bottom of the ordning with something pretty simple. You know when you sort of see like a mass of land that is like higher than the point that you currently are. It's pretty straightforward describing it. What would you call that?
Dirt? More dirt?
It's a hill. It's a hill is what it is. And it's the hill giant that we're looking at today.
Yes, it's the hill giant. The least and the smallest of the giants. These guys are ridiculously straightforward. They are not particularly bright. They do not have complex societies. These guys are very much fairy tale giants. So when you think of the giant at the top of the beanstalk, kind of the fee-fi-fo-fum giant, they are a very basic, big person.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot more to it than that. I mean, they are a little more complex, but not by a long shot. They have a patron deity, a son of Anam the All-Father, Grolantor. They do have settlements and the semblances of a society, but most giants I like to think of through the lens of this idea of the will to dominate, in a very Nietzschean sense, for any of you fellow philosophers out there. And for them, that will to dominate manifests through eating. And being big.
That's their whole thing. It says, actually, in the Monster Manual, hill giants don't even really fully understand the ordning. So I know we talked about in the first episode about how the ordning is a deep part of giant kind. It is no more inseparable from them than their arm, but they don't really get it. All that they know is that bigger is better. And so therefore, other giants can tell them what to do because other giants are bigger.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the end of the complexity that they really think about this with. They're defined by their greed, and that's about it. They aren't thinking about it that hard.
I have such a soft spot, as I think I've talked about before, for creatures or beings that are just, in one way or another, unredeemably terrible in some sense.
just a wee bit of garbage.
They're at the bottom rung of this ancient hierarchical society, and they don't even know they're in it.
Not really. They just don't think about it that hard. I
don't think they think about anything that hard, honestly.
They really don't. They're very most likely the kind of giant that your players are going to run into on average. They're
probably the most common.
Yeah, they're just around, generally speaking. They generally live the closest to settlements that people live in. that your players are going to be interacting with, because most likely what they're going to be doing is seeing a nearby farm and taking things from it. Their main thing is to be able to consume more, to get stronger, to get bigger than their compatriots, therefore they can be more in charge. That's pretty much the end of any and all ambition that they particularly have. So they will go and steal things from farms. They don't grow things themselves. They don't keep domesticated animals. They just take stuff and then repurpose it.
Yeah. Even to the extent that in most forms of you encountering a hill giant, they might even be taking the idea of being bigger to artificially expanding their forms by doing things like just strapping furniture that they might have stolen to themselves. Like, just, oh, it's a rocking chair. I'm going to strap that across my chest. Now it's part of me. Now I'm bigger.
I'm now bigger. That's the end of the logic here. They're pretty simple. I know. If you look at the art here in the monster manual, again, you get that sense of just, they're very straightforward. It's just a big person.
Having grown up in a seaside town, I'm pretty sure I've seen this guy on the beach a few times.
Oh no, you really have, haven't you?
Maybe with a open can of Stella or something, but...
He definitely skipped leg day.
Oh, yeah.
He's that guy who's down in Venice Beach who's lifting all of the weights and definitely skipped leg day, and you're like, cool, bro. I love the musculature. Again, there's a very deep sense that these are very strong. Giants are strong. We said at the beginning of the first episode, giants are strong, and that absolutely and of course includes hill giants. But again, you can think about what this guy would be talking to you about, and it's probably very little. They are not entertaining conversationalists. We talk a lot here at the Bestiary about how not every monster in the monster manual is for fighting. They might just want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. Hill giants don't have much to say. Like, they might try and boss you around and bully you if they're not particularly hungry, but they're more likely going to try and take your stuff and potentially try to eat you if they're hungry enough. They're just probably gonna fight you just for the sense of fighting you, because again, when it comes to a hill giant, bigger is better. It's bigger than you. It's in charge of you. It's probably going to smash you and take your stuff. That's its whole thing. That's it. Beginning and end.
Yeah. I mean, because they are driven by this hunger, by this will to dominate through just size, they're very aggressive. So, yeah, we've talked about how, yeah, you might not fight this thing. You might talk to it. It's probably more interesting to just talk to it than fight it. The hill giant's just gonna try and smash you, or eat you, or both.
And they don't really speak common. I mean, you could absolutely have room for comic relief, and talking to a hill giant, I imagine, would be very funny. Because they're very alien in that their conclusions of logic are not ours. The things they find entertaining or reasonable are certainly never the things that we're going to find entertaining or reasonable. So it could be quite hilarious, but it's almost certainly always going to end in a fight at some point when it gets bored or just decides that it can't boss you around anymore and tries to punch you. They're not very talky. I've fought these in the game that James is running. So you've heard us, of course, here at the Adventures Pack talk about games we have all played together at different times. James, in the before times when we could all be in a room together, was running Storm King. I know. What? I think we just live in these boxes now. This is the box in which I exist.
Well, I mean, as I say, like, you know, as an incredibly sophisticated computer recreation, actually what you see in this frame is the extent of my existence. It's horrifying on an existential level.
But once upon a time, we could exist in the same room together, and we were playing Storm King's Thunder. And we haven't gotten too terribly far, but I do remember, those spoilers comments, but I do remember we ran into some hill giants who were pretending to be a giant shrub. Because they really thought they could be I mean, they are however tall, like 16 feet tall, I want to say.
On average. On average.
And they thought they would be a shrub that day. And mostly I remember, I mean, they were challenging. There were enough of them that was kind of a pain, but mostly it was just like, guys, we just need to get past you for the love of God. Can you please just move? And they would not, and then we fought them. But it's
Hey, Emmy, that was the smartest decision those hill giants had ever made.
That's the thing. It probably was. Again, when we're talking about these guys, they're very simple. They don't have any stats that are even above 10, except for their constitution and their strength, which are both 19 and 21.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Their attacks, they have 2 great club attacks and a rock. All giants can throw rocks. He could throw a rock.
Doesn't have to be a rock.
Doesn't have to be a rock.
As long as it's something big and heavy.
Something big and heavy. And of course, being hill
might be that rocking chair.
It might be. They certainly could. But that's about it. They're just giants.
Thank you again, you horde of wonderful people, for joining us here for the Bestiary Monster Manual A to Z. What's the biggest hill you've ever climbed? What's the biggest hill giant you've ever fought? Or climbed? Or both?
You can do both.
Let us know. Let us know in the comments. And while you're there, you can like the video, you can subscribe. It does actually make a difference to the channel, and I know it's a thing that a lot of people forget to do, but it actually does help, so we really appreciate it. And while you're down there, you'll also find links to our various social media presences, including our Patreon. We deeply appreciate all of you who choose to sign up to that. Again, it very substantially helps us out, and yeah, thanks. So yeah, join us next week when we talk about fire giants moving up in the ordning, and here you can find some of the other stuff we warble about for fun.